I was once a lone wanderer, now sharing my life with a powerful alpha. Chapter 9 feels in the chest area. I kind of had Jack's words about fate stuck on my mind for the next week. People's words didn't normally put me on edge, but for some reason, I didn't see Matteo very often, but I wasn't complaining. Well, not out loud. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. I was dying not being able to see his annoyingly beautiful face. He was constantly working with some visiting alpha. Jack explained to me that this certain alpha happened to be leading one of the largest packs closest to us. This pack is also located 4 states away from us, so that gives a pretty good idea of how big Matteo's territory expands. I honestly have no clue what Matteo and the other alpha guy have been doing throughout the past week. I don't really pay much attention to them. Jack isn't allowed to tell me anything about it either, so he's a hopeless case. He did tell me the alpha's name is Noel. I hadn't actually met the dude. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's apparently not safe for me considering I'm still classified as a rogue until I accept pack life, which has not been happening too easily for me. The only person I actually carry on conversations with is Jack. Daniela kicked me in the shin the other day, and in response I told her that I hope she drowns in a bathtub. That was about as much conversation Daniela and I had. I don't even really carry on conversations with Matteo. First of all, he's barely around, and when he's around, we just get on each other's nerves. He'll say something, and then I'll make a smart remark which starts an argument. He in turn locks himself in his office, and I rant to Jack about how much I want to punch Matteo in the teeth. I don't know why I go to Jack because all that he ever says is, the sexual tension is rising. Matteo and I still sleep in the same bed together every night. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. A person would think that for people who can't even handle a normal conversation between one another that we wouldn't be able to share a bed. But we always fall asleep the same way. Myself on the far left side of the bed and Matteo on the far right. Somehow, we find our way to one another. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. I always wake up with a death grip on his arm. We only ever had one conversation while we were laying in bed. It was about the smell of cheese. I was just casually eating cheese when suddenly Matteo ripped it out of my hand and threw it across the room. His reason for doing so is because he doesn't like the smell of it. I just sat there dumbfounded. So yeah, our relationship at the moment is a bit rocky, and neither of us are really doing anything to better it. We literally pick fights over everything. We argued in the kitchen over how to properly wash a potato. I'd never even washed a potato in my entire life, but the way he insisted on doing it seemed pretty stupid. Everything was just one big argument with us, and the more often it happened, the more it killed me inside. It was a feeling I'd never felt before, and I wasn't sure how to describe it. Not to mention, every time he walked away from me when it was all over, I just wanted to kiss him until he stopped breathing. I think Jack may be right about the sexual tension. Well, for me at least, because I don't want to wear the other one. Matteo. I shouted at them. I shouted at the top of my lungs in the middle of one of the pack house's main lounge areas. The few people who were enjoying the peace of the comfy sitting space had all left as soon as Matteo and I began our daily banter. Why would you wear one and not the other? There, he shouted back at me. Why are you so worried about a stupid sock? Your foot is going to get cold. Matteo declared. I wasn't positive, but by the look on his face, I think he was being dead serious. Good. I want it to be cold. I hope it falls off, I exclaimed, throwing my hands into the air. Matteo's jaw was clenched and I wasn't sure if it was due to frustration or anger. But I did know one thing. He looked extremely hot. His hand was gripping my white sock that is technically Daniela's so hard that the muscles on his arm were literally popping out. If I could freeze time and just stroke the muscles on his arms, I would. Matteo let out a really throaty sigh, showing his obvious annoyance and frustration due to the situation. His dark blue eyes that seemed to be trained on me the entire time looked away. "I don't have time to do this with you," he grumbled lowly. I glared at his muscular back as he began walking away from me. My teeth clenched together and I scrunched my nose in annoyance like a 5-year-old. I wanted to stop my foot, too, but I didn't want to seem like a complete 5-year-old. "Yeah, real mature. Just walk away even though you started it," I shouted at him, causing him to freeze in his spot. I admit, I was being petty, but I didn't want him to leave. As soon as he had him, he wouldn't be back until we went to bed. We'd be too annoyed with everything that happened throughout our day that we wouldn't even want to talk to each other. I didn't really care that whatever Alpha was staying here could no doubt hear us. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Matteo slowly turned around to face me. His facial expression seemed calm, but I could see the anger swimming around in his eyes. "I will see you later," he stated with a freakishly large amount of calmness to his tone, but I could just feel how close he was to how closing his shit with me. With that, he left the room, leaving me there alone. I hadn't even realized how tense I had been until I was the only person left in the room. My hands were clenched into fists, my body tensed to the max, and my lip was curled up into almost a snarl. I grunted out as I brought my foot up and kicked the couch. It swiftly slid across the wooden floor and slammed into the wall. My chest felt heavy, and I had this weird feeling in my heart that I didn't like. It made me want to cry, which is something I rarely ever do. I think the last time I did was when I decided to cartwheel in my cell and ended up smacking my foot. I plopped down on the couch with my hand on my chest. I was breathing heavily for some unknown reason. I couldn't quite make out whether it was due to my shouting match I just had with Matteo or the fact that I was close to tears. What the hell was that noise, though? "Hey, are you okay?" Jack asked worriedly, walking into the room. I'm sure I looked like a mess. Mentally, I felt like one, and I didn't even know why. Everything in me just wanted to cry. "No," I stated, feeling slightly panicked by my own emotions and the heaviness of my chest making it hard to inhale. "I feel like I'm about to cry, and I can't breathe. Jack, I can't breathe." Jack immediately went into a panic. "Okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Hold on, I'm going to get Matteo." "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." He rushed out as he began turning around to leave. "No," I shouted as my hand shot out to grasp his arm. He turned around to face me, his green eyes finding my blue ones. I could see the worry in them. I wasn't sure if it was worry about me or what Matteo would do to him if I ended up collapsing because I couldn't catch my breath. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Please don't get him," I pleaded. Tears brimmed my eyes, and that just made me mad, which made him more. "Just take me upstairs." Jack sighed in defeat. "This May thing is really getting to you, isn't it?" Ignoring his question, which he obviously knew the answer to, I held my hands out to him like a little kid. "Please just take me upstairs." With a sigh, Jack picked me up effortlessly and walked upstairs with me in his arms. I skipped dinner. I slept straight through it. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." The only thing that could stop the feeling in my heart making me want to cry was sleep. I think I was just mentally exhausted from arguing with Matteo so much. Our mate bond was really starting to get the best of me. I was laying in bed flat on my back just staring at the ceiling when Matteo finally walked in. It was about 11:30 p.m., though I didn't expect him to even realize I was awake considering there was barely any light coming into the room. My body was submerged under the covers up to my neck, which I was pretty thankful for. I was wearing a pair of black Nike Pro shorts with one of Matteo's shirts. I wasn't positive if borrowing one of Matteo's shirts would start an argument, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to take that chance. I still wanted to wear his shirt. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It soothed my nerves, which had been progressively getting worse. Matteo walked into the room and shut the door behind him, making as minimal noise as possible. I thought he was just going to go straight to his side of the bed. But he stopped at my side. "Why are you awake?" he asked quietly, noticing me just staring at the white ceiling. "Waiting," I stated bluntly. The achiness in my chest started to return, as did the want to cry at the sound of Matteo's voice. It was all because of the stupid bond. I hate this mate bond. I hate it. The morning. I could tell he wanted to ask why I was waiting for the morning. But instead he said nothing. He just walked into the bathroom for a shower. He wasn't in there long before he came back out wearing just a pair of grey sweatpants that hung loosely on his hips. I was still laying in the exact same position I had been when he left for his shower. "Still waiting?" he asked as he stood over me with his arms crossed over his rippled chest. What I would do to have that body on top of me right now. "Yep," I said, gulping the key. I could just manage to see him raise an eyebrow in a questioning way as his eyes scanned over me. That all. I knew exactly what he meant. He was waiting for a smart remark or a cocky reply. Yep. Matteo stood there for a minute just watching my face as if the answers to all of life's questions were going to appear on my forehead. "Well, then," he mumbled after he realized I wasn't going to egg on another argument. I didn't have it in me tonight. He made his way over to his side of the bed, pulled the covers down, and climbed in. The bed sank, and as soon as it did, I could feel the body heat generating off of Matteo. I for one was freezing. I hadn't been cold in years, but ever since I had met Matteo a little over a week ago, I always seemed to go to bed cold. All I wanted to do was cuddle for warmth. I also wanted to cuddle just so that I could snuggle against Matteo and have him hold me, but that is completely irrelevant. I craned my head to the side to see the back of Matteo's head. I was also greeted by his muscled back, which made me feel a lot of different ways that just a back in general should not make a normal person feel. I snapped my attention back to the ceiling, trying very hard to not think about how badly I wanted to run my fingers through his dark brown hair and down his brawny back. "Matteo," I spoke up, feeling the heavy feeling beginning to appear in my chest. "Again, Koya," he answered me in a very deep voice as if he were already half asleep. "You know, it's kind of cold, and I don't have socks on. And just sort of I don't know. I don't really snuggle or whatever. But we're like, yeah, I don't really get to see you. And when we do, we fight in that kind of just I don't know. It bothers me right in the chest area, well. Not like my boobs, but my chest. You feel me? I just we're mates. And I don't think it would be wrong if we just cling to each other for warmth because it's cold." And in the midst of my embarrassing babble, Matteo rolled over, hooked his arm around me, and pulled me to his chest. I shut up immediately, loving the way his body fit next to mine. My entire body flooded with warmth, and the heaviness and the achiness in my chest vanished. I felt completely fine. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I felt like a brand new person. "Good night, Kaye," Matteo mumbled into the hair on the back of my head as he pulled me impossibly closer. "I missed you today," I said so faintly that I didn't even expect him to be able to hear me. "I missed you too." That was the first night I fell asleep with a smile on my face that wasn't from murdering someone. Chapter 10: Sexual Tension. I woke up alone as usual, but considering I slept in until 11 in the morning, I knew I couldn't be mad at Matteo for leaving. He was probably doing something with that Alpha Noel guy. So in my state of lonesome, I simply held Matteo's pillow against myself until I was practically suffocating in his heavenly scent. I forced myself to get out of bed so that no one would question why I was waking up at noon. I didn't have any other answer besides that I just really love to sleep. I'm one of those rare breeds of people that go to bed early and won't wake up until I smell lunch. I don't have a problem with it, but everyone else seems to for some reason. I headed straight for Matteo's shower after I had forced myself out of his bed. Growing up, I always been a night shower. I couldn't help but use Matteo's shower every chance I got. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's definitely my favorite part of living in the pack house. Sleeping with Matteo comes in a close second. But if I could marry a shower, I would marry this one. It truly was made for Jesus. I wasted a whole other hour singing the United States national anthem about 13 times at the top of my lungs. Hey hobo, Jack nudged my shoulder. Oh hey, I chimed as I finished putting cream cheese on my bagel. What one? I smiled just as Daniela walked into the kitchen. The look of, what the actual heck is going on Jack's face was extremely evident. His brows were pulled together, and his normal smile was replaced by just a flat line. What? Are you feeling okay? He questioned as his eyes scanned over my entire body. Am I feeling okay? I repeated, not entirely sure if I heard him correctly. He brought his hand up to my forehead and held his palm to it. Do you get extremely friendly and generous when you're ill? He asked as I swatted away his hand. Can't I just offer a friend a bagel? I questioned with a laugh. Immediately. Jack shook his head. No, not you. You just called me your friend. And you're laughing. Are you positive you're okay? By this point, Jack seemed to be panicking. For what reason? I had no idea. He was acting like I'd never been generous a day in my life. I admit, last time he called me a hobo, I ended up sucker punching him. But I was in a pretty good mood today. Jack, I'm fine. I assured just for Daniela to pipe in. You and Teo banged last night or something? She asked lazily as she bit into an apple. I wish. I mumbled to myself, taking a bite of my bagel. What? Jack asked, not hearing what I had said. Nothing. Nothing. I quickly covered. A loud laugh erupted from Daniela, which just confused Jack even more. It was times like these when I wasn't sure if Jack was 17 or 25. I could honestly see him being anywhere within there. He had a very interesting character. Some days he was mature and well put together. And other days, he was well Jack. So, what happened? Daniela finally asked, obviously knowing my abnormally peppy mood was due to Matteo. I just shrugged and bit into my bagel. Wait. Something happened. Jack chimed in, just now getting the hint that my sudden change in character wasn't due to an attack on my immune system. His eyes grew about 3 sizes, and his mouth made an O shape. Did the sexual tension finally hit its peak? Oh my gosh. I groaned out. We just cuddled. That's it. I stated it in exasperation. Jack seemed happy about this news. He was the one pushing me to give Matteo a chance and try to get over the whole alpha title. This entire time. Daniela just seemed bored. I was expecting a bit more fun from you. Kaye. I'm thoroughly disappointed, she commented, tossing her half-eaten apple into the trash. Daniela. Shut up. Jack turned around and snapped at her. Don't say anything to discriminate her. I rolled my eyes as I ate another bite of my bagel. Daniela and Jack had begun arguing about God knows what. So I just headed out of the kitchen. I was stopped abruptly by a hand gripping my forearm, which spun me around so that I was facing Jack. Where are you going? To my room. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Jack didn't respond, but Daniela did. Noelle left for the afternoon like an hour ago. Teo is probably in his office if you don't want to get it on or something. She put bluntly. I scowled at her, hoping she didn't realize just how enticing the thought of getting it on with Matteo sounded to me in that moment. I may not like the whole alpha situation he is going on, but I can't deny what a fine piece of ass Matteo is. Like I said, I'll be in my room, I stated as I walked out of the kitchen. I swear on my life that my intention was to walk straight to my Matteo's room. It wasn't until I got to the hallway when I had the option to walk up another flight of stairs or walk to the end of the hall to Matteo's office that I decided to scratch that plan. I can just stop in and say hi. There's nothing wrong with being friendly. It's not like I'm trying to ride him. I reasoned, knowing for fact that I was going against my entire rogue side. But I couldn't help it. Matteo had an annoyingly strong hold on me, the mate bond. It was like I had a literal leash on. I made my way down to Matteo's office, being as quiet as possible. I was not willing to give Daniela the satisfaction of knowing that I'd actually went to see Matteo. I reached the large oak door and didn't even bother knocking. I just walked straight in. "Hey, I just wanted to say hey, and no one's in here," I said as I realized that I was talking to literally no one. "Donna," I sighed in annoyance, but decided not to leave the office. I walked in completely and shut the door behind me. I realized in that moment that Matteo was about 5 times more organized than I'd ever been. Everything in his office seemed to have its own special place. Even his desk was organized. I had no clue how he managed to keep everything in order with so much work that had to be taken care of. I would be a mess if I were him. I knew from the various conversations with my dad that the Theater's back was important. It was one of the packs that basically ran all of the packs below it. Other packs that rank near CS are mainly just socias. UI room, a Kisens, and a one pack I unfortunately didn't take as seriously as I should have Vindicta. Out of about all 30 packs located within North America, these 5 basically run the whole show. Theater's and UI room not only outcall the packs in North America, but they are also 2 of the highest ranking packs known to this day. The Ducent pack in Russia is actually the largest pack known to date. It's always been a dream of mine to destroy it slowly, but I can only cause so much destruction at once without getting myself killed. Point is, I know for a fact that Matteo doesn't exactly have an easy or stressful job to do, but his organization skills are certainly up to par. Well, I sighed as I scanned the office. My eyes landed on a couch that seemed fairly comfortable. My statement proved to be true as I sank down into the leather sofa and sprawled out lazily. I suppose I'll just wait for Matteo. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't really plan on falling asleep, but I guess I was doing a lot of things on a winter day. I've never been bothered by a few extra hours of sleep. I sleep like a baby. There wasn't really anything else to do while Vindicta had me locked up in a cell for free use other than constant naps. Sleeping pretty much became my natural state of being. I was like half awoken from my peaceful rest when I heard the sound of boots hitting a floor. The couch I had been laying on in a very odd position had caused my body to tense up and almost mimic the feeling of how it felt to sleep on my piece of old cardboard bed thing in my cell. This in turn caused my brain to think I was still locked up in Vindicta territory. So as soon as the door to Matteo's office opened and the sound of men talking was heard, I thematically turned into my grumpy asshole self. Jesus Christ. Will you all shut the hell up? I snapped, rolling over just for my head to make contact with the back of the couch. This instantly snapped me back into reality. My eyes flew open, and I turned around on the couch to face 3 very confused men. One of them being my absolutely gorgeous mate, and the other 2 looking moderately hot. But not Matteo on a fine summer's day. Hot. Out of all the things Matteo could have said, he chose the word spoken like a true alpha. Who the hell are you? The one dude, who I had no clue of, asked me in total confusion. He looked older than Matteo. Not by much, but he definitely seemed older by at least a few years. I'm Kae, I retorted as if he should have known my name the moment his warm brown eyes landed on me. The dude didn't say anything in return. He turned to face Matteo in bewilderment. The 3rd guy in the room did the same. Kae is my mate, Matteo stated. His tone of voice was hard, and judging by the angry expression he had directed toward me, I could only assume he wasn't exactly pleased that I took a power nap in his office when I had been specifically told to not involve myself with whatever week-long meeting this was. The older man turned to face me once again. Slowly, a cocky smirk grew on his face. "And you've been hiding her all this time?" he questioned. The man beside him just watched me closely. Like the older guy, he had brown hair and brown eyes, only difference being that his hair was slightly darker in color, but it wasn't nearly as dark as Matteo's. No one really had the capability of comparing to Matteo. "Noelle, I really don't think my mate is any of your business," Mateo snapped quite harshly. I hadn't really had the opportunity to ever see him act this way. It was a bit weird. If I'm being honest, he seemed slightly terrifying, and I couldn't decide whether it was due to the fact that he seemed to tower over everyone in the room. The tight, black shirt he had on showing off his dominating figure almost perfectly, or just the terrifying expression on his face. Either way, I was extremely turned on by the dominance that was emanating from him. I think I was the only one. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Because the guy standing beside the older man whom Mateo had referred to as Noel looked like he wanted to jump out of the window. Noel wasn't paying much attention to Mateo. He was focused on me. It was just a question. Elfen airs easy. The entire werewolf community has been waiting for the arrival of your mate, and you've been hiding her. Pardon my curiosity, Noel commented. I immediately realized how much of a cocky asshole this guy must be on a daily basis, and wondered if he'd ever had the chance to meet Daniela. Noel, I don't think the other man in the room who I'm going to assume is Noel's beta began to say, but was interrupted by his alpha. You certainly are not what any of us would have imagined for the alpha of Cetus, Noel said as he held out his hand for me to shake. I slowly raised my hand to his and took it. There was something I didn't like about this guy, and it wasn't just because he was like the male version of Daniela. I would suggest you release my mate's hand, Mateo warned in a calm tone, but I could feel the anger underlying in it. If I was Noel, I would have pulled back immediately, but he seemed in absolutely no rush. I assume you'll be making an appearance at the conference, Noel asked as he leisurely pulled his hand away from mine. I eyed him carefully, analyzing him entirely, the way his chest rose and fell when breathed, how often he blinked, and how his lips moved when he spoke. Something about this guy made my brain tick, and it had my entire body on high alert. Conference? I questioned, cautiously averting my attention from Noel to Mateo. Mateo was no longer watching me with his heavy glare. He was staring directly at Noel. Leaders' conference, Mateo remarked. His gaze never left Noel's back. My attention returned to Noel, who was patiently awaiting my answer. Leaders' conference. I drug out, not entirely understanding what the two were talking about. Oh, Mateo didn't tell you. Noel took my silence to his question as a no. It's a big meeting that involves the alphas. That is, even the Gamma S from all over the world. It happens every year. This year it happens to be taking place in Ontario, I believe. I'm surprised he didn't tell you, considering he's one of the alphas that runs the whole thing. But I could tell what he found funny wasn't his surprise. I could be wrong, but I had a feeling that Noel had a bit of a petty grudge against Mateo, and he was enjoying getting on Mateo's last nerve. At least we had one thing in common, and I'm supposed to be there. Well, you are his mate unless he doesn't accept you. Noel, you are to be escorted off of my territory. My Gamma will be here shortly. Mateo spoke up, finally having enough of Noel's antics. Noel turned around and faced Mateo, just then seeing the anger lying in his features. I could literally hear Noel gulp. Mateo seemed unaffected by this and just continued staring at him like he was his prey. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'll review the territory agreement again, but you'll be lucky if you keep half of what you have now. Mateo seethed, but in the calmest way. Is that a problem? I could see the internal struggle that Noel was having. I sort of felt bad for him, but it was his own fault for testing Mateo. If he had just been smart about the whole situation, he wouldn't be having half of his territory taken from him. It didn't take a genius to know that you really shouldn't challenge the Seed spec or the alpha of it. For that matter, the Seed spec practically ran North America, so Mateo's anger due to Noel's disrespect didn't surprise me. Everyone respects the Seed spec. It doesn't matter who you are in it. In the eyes of most packs, Seed spec is basically just a bunch of alphas run by one of the most important and influential alphas of all Mateo. No alpha nes easier. Noel submitted, hanging his head low. Good. Get out. With that, Noel and his beta left Matteo's office and met Daniela in the hallway. As soon as the door shut, Matteo was standing over me. He was not happy. That was extremely evident. So, this leaders' conference. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Cutting the angry silence in the room. Forget about it. Matteo order making annoyance rise within me. Why? Because you aren't going, he stated bluntly. My jaw dropped and my brows furrowed together. What the hell does he mean? Because you aren't going? Yes, I am, I argued. I didn't even really want to go in the first place. In all honesty, if he would have been making me go, I would have refused. But now that he doesn't want me to, it just makes me even more motivated to go. Or do you just not accept me? You don't want everyone else to know I'm your mate. You just want to sleep in the same bed as me and keep me hidden from the rest of the world. That struck a nerve. I wasn't sure if his anger took over or his wolf, but I was suddenly picked up from the couch and pushed against the wall. I had been in scenarios like this before, both sexually and violently, but this time I was completely flustered. I had a small inkling that it was due to being in such close proximity to my mate. I want you more than anything, but I also want you safe and alive, Matteo advised as his hand delicately held onto my chin, forcing me to look up at him. You aren't marked. You aren't exactly mated. Hell, you don't even accept pack life. How do you expect to fit into an entire room of high-ranking pack members being the person that you are? I'm not going to make everyone else happy. I'm going to make you happy. How do you expect me to accept pack life if you push me away from it? I shot back. I'm not trying to push you away from it. I'm just trying to ease you into it, so I don't end up losing you for throwing you into it. Well, maybe I would rather just be thrown into it. I snapped as I raised my voice, causing him to raise his as well. That's really what you want? Well, great. Perfect. Wonderful. I shouted back at him just seconds before his lips attached to mine. In that moment, I genuinely believe I had irregular heart palpitations. A flame built up between our lips. When I allowed him access into my mouth was when the flame turned into a bonfire. Matteo's muscular frame had me pinned against the wall. His right hand still had a hold on my face, but his left was trailing down my body where it rested on my hip. Heat from not only his warm lips but also his hand on my hip caused a fire to build in my chest and my legs to feel like they could collapse at any moment. He nipped and sucked on my bottom lip, no doubt making it swollen. I didn't even fight the moan that came out of me, causing Matteo to growl lowly. A part of me was actually amused knowing just how much Matteo enjoyed it. Somehow, we ended up on the couch. Matteo was laying down, and I was straddling his waist. Any other time, I would have been on a mission to have his shirt and pants off in the next 5 minutes. The heat in my chest grew, and almost every part of me wanted nothing more than to jump his bones in that moment. I say almost. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Due to the fact that something in my brain told me to pull away, I was completely in a daze when I pulled my lips away from his. Judging by the redness and slight swelling of Matteo's lips, I already knew I no doubt looked like a hot mess. There was no way Jack wasn't going to question me about this. Talk about just being thrown into it. So, that leaders' conference. I managed to stutter out as I ran a hand through my hair. A month. We go in a month, Matteo advised, just as breathless as I had been. I nodded in response. Can't wait. Chapter 11, Swallow Your Spit. Yes, I repeated myself for what felt like the 100th time. That is what I said the first 3 times. I'm just slightly in shock that you agreed to go and do something pack-related with Matteo. Jack rambled in disbelief. I'd made the courageous decision of telling Jack that I was going to the leaders' conference before anyone else had the chance to. I did this solely because I wasn't sure if he would squeal in excitement and embarrass himself when he found out, or freak out on me for not telling him as soon as the decision became final. Besides, I had questions about it, and I wasn't one 100% positive that I could stay with Matteo in his office this afternoon any longer without getting down to business. I really don't see why, I muttered as I ripped my socks off of my feet. I really hate socks. You told Daniela that you hope she chokes on electrical wire when she asked if you'd taken the chart to anyone in the house, Jack stated rather bluntly. My brows drew together, and my forehead creased in annoyance. I don't particularly favor her. You told her to choke on wire, he repeated, feeling the need to remind me. Could have been worse. I responded thinking that I had a pretty solid defensive statement, but all that it got me was an extremely exasperated look from Jack that just screamed, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I can't help that when I see her I want to choke babies. I said this once before to Matteo, and I'm saying it again now. Fate was either drunk or high off of its ass when it made you Luna of this pack. Or, there's no such thing as fate, I suggested, causing the imaginary bomb in Jack's head to explode. Don't start. I'm not doing this with you. Again, Jack started shouting at me with his finger pointed directly at my torso. His shouting brought along angry footsteps that had both of us looking to see who managed to enter the awful level of the pack house. Seriously, if I have to hear one more conversation about fate from either of you this week, I'm going to rip your heads off, Daniela threatened. She looked half asleep as she stood in the doorway with her long, blonde hair thrown up messily into a bun. Considering it was 9 at night, it made sense. Daniela was constantly babbling on and on about how she needs her beauty sleep. I asked her why she doesn't just stay asleep forever. I even offered my assistance, but she and her middle finger politely declined. Nice of you to grace us with your presence, Donnie, Jack acknowledged. Jack didn't seem fazed at all by her presence, which didn't surprise me. I assumed they got along considering the two of them and Matteo are basically the most impo of the pack. They pretty much do everything together. Without a tight bond amongst the Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, the pack would most likely crumble, like I didn't know already, Daniela commented as she fixed the strap on her tank top. I didn't miss the way Jack's eyes swiftly raked down Daniela's body, which was only covered by a white camisolo and a pair of grey booty shorts. I doubted she even realized that he had done it. Can you be any more of an egoist? I muttered under my breath. I did it loud enough to where I knew she could still hear me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She laughed humorlessly. Can you be any more petty? You want to find out now? No, we don't, Jack quickly interjected. No, Daniela drug out as she stared me down as if challenging me with her dark eyes. I think I do. Why don't you just go crawl back to whichever hole you spawned from? Why don't I just shove my fist down your throat? Oh, please. I'm sure you're much more acquainted with having things shoved in your mouth. My eyes drifted up and down her body as the corner of my lip turned up in disgust, and I scrunched my nose just to add to the amount of petty I was seeking to achieve. She asked for it. I struck an nerve with that one. I could tell by the way her jaw was clenched that she was gritting her teeth in an attempt to not rip my throat out. She can make all of the threats she wants as long as Matteo isn't around. But the moment she acts on them, she better send out a silent prayer for her and her bleached, blonde hair. Her eyes darkened, warning me in that moment that her wolf was stepping forward and that she could shift it really any moment. She was like a ticking time bomb at this point. Knock it off. You two. Jack snapped, suddenly becoming much more serious and demanding than he normally would be. I can only correlate it to the fact that he knew his ass would be toast if anything happened to me. Donnie, what do you want? Matteo has requested to see you, she answered, crossing her arms over her fairly large bust and leaning against the door frame. What for? He claims you've spent too much time with his mate today. Immediately, a look of annoyance plastered onto my face. What does that have to do with anything? I chimed in. The irritability in my voice wasn't hard to spot. He's the one who assigned Jack to watch me. He's just jealous. Kaye, Jack commented as he pushed himself up off of the floor from where he had been sitting into a standing position. His wolf has probably been getting at him for letting me be around you so much. That makes no sense. This is your job. I'm the closest friend he's got. He trusts me, I think. But I haven't found my mate. So that trust only goes on so long at one time before it begins to waver. It's his instinct to protect what's his. Jack explained. My eyes narrowed into slits at the mention of being his. I'd always known just based on how my dad was with my mom that I would no doubt have to deal with the label of being someone else's. I just learned to accept it. That didn't mean I liked it. Okay. I kind of liked it. Well, it's my instinct to kill the first person in the room that I don't like. But he puts a stop to that. Maybe I should just put a stop to his nonsense, I stated as I pushed myself up from the floor and started heading toward the door. Where are you going? Daniela questioned as I brushed past her. To put a stop to my mate's nonsense. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Making my way to Matteo's office where I knew he'd be. As usual, I passed by many of C.Edis pack members. As if it were rehearsed 1,000 times, each and every one of them stood at attention with an assertive and correct posture, their shoulders back, chest out, and chin up as I approached them all the way until they were behind me. I could only assume what they had done once my back was to them. Not one of them uttered a word to me. They never did. I had an inkling it was due to me being mated to their alpha. I entered Matteo's office without knocking once again. You've got a lot of balls. I growled out as I whipped the door open, causing it to smack against the wall. A normal person would have jumped at the sudden action, but Matteo seemed completely prepared. He just peered up at me through thick, dark lashes as he sipped away at a glass containing a golden, brown liquid. And the bitching starts early tonight. Yay, Matteo deadpanned tiredly as he took another swig of what I could only assume was bourbon by the scent. You need to shut the hell up. And explain to me what gives you the right to tell Jack how much time he gets to spend with me. I'm the alpha. He put bluntly, and then paused for a moment. You do realize how contradictory what you just said was. Right. I assumed that he took the look on my face as a sign that I had no clue what talking about. So he just continued. You told me to shut the hell up. And then to explain myself. You don't find it the least bit amusing. I need a drink of this, I said as I marched over to him and snatched the glass out of his hand. I threw back the drink and handed him back over the empty glass. Yep, definitely bourbon. My dad always told me I was going to drive my mate to drinking. I just hadn't realized it would be this soon. Matteo commented with a slight chuckle, looking down at his bourbon-less glass. Stop trying to make this situation humorous. I snapped. You can't just put time limits on how long I can spend time with people. Technically, he remarked, adding a fake cough before saying alpha. I rolled my eyes at his childishness. You can if you want to make me hate you. I fired back. I could tell by the way he flinched ever so slightly that I managed to hit something within him. You do understand that Jack is the reason I'm even giving this stupid mate thing a chance. Right. Or has your domineering us overlooked that little bit while you were too busy being pissed at him for doing what you assigned him to do? What do you want? An apology? Matteo asked, giving me a look that I just knew was saying he would never give me an apology over anything that had to do with this topic. Koya, I'm not going to apologize for wanting you to myself rather than have you spend all of your time with another guy who you happen to almost have sex with. Please correct me if what I'm saying makes no sense. I gritted my teeth as I took in what Matteo was saying. He was right. I knew he was right. I spent a majority of time with Jack and avoiding him. I'd never been a very understanding person, so I was slightly annoyed with myself that I was managing to come to terms and understand Matteo's view on all of this. It was highly irritating for me. I need some more to drink. I grumbled as I grabbed the glass out of his hand yet again. The bottle is on the desk. Yeah, I muttered, waving him away, already knowing where the bottle was. Are we going back to this again? He asked while I poured bourbon into his cup. I furrowed my brows together as I set the bottle down and lifted the cup to my lips. Back to what? The whole not being able to carry on a full conversation unless we're cussing each other out. As fun as that sounds. I'm running out of insults. Matteo held out his hand, So I walked back over to him and handed him the glass of bourbon. He greedily downed what I hadn't had the chance to. You use all your good ones already. No, I shook my head. I'm saving those for later. Shame. I really liked the one where you called me an uncultured swine. Setting down the glass, I eyed him carefully as he walked over to his desk and took a seat. It was in this moment that the light from his desk lamp showed me how exhausted Matteo was. His eyelids drooped slightly, and his dark blue eyes had a bit of a red tint to them. I managed to make out what looked to be a healing busted lip that had not been there earlier too. Not saying anything, I made my way around Matteo's desk and sat down on his lap. He didn't say anything as I sat down and ran my thumb across his busted lip, but he did give me a very confused look. His hand slowly came up and set itself against my lower back as the other placed itself on my thigh. What did you do? I asked softly, feeling electricity shoot through my veins, creating a heat in my chest. Went to the training fields after you left earlier. Two kids got into it pretty badly, and I had to break it up. Why'd you break it up? Growing up, any time my brother and I fought, my dad just let it play out. My mom wasn't the biggest fan of it, but Dad always said that the only people who can work out problems were ourselves. It wasn't his place to step in. It wasn't anyone's place. Someone could have been really hurt. Kaie, I'm not just going to allow my pack to rip each other apart. Matteo explained. But how do you expect them to work outlands? I realize they aren't going to like each other and are going to have issues amongst themselves. But I expect them to at least respect each other enough not to try to kill one another. They were trying to kill each other. I questioned, drawing my brows together. That tends to happen when mates get involved. They were fighting over someone's mate. I asked in a bit of shock. I never did understand why people fought over mates, considering every werewolf was destined to have one. It seemed pretty meaningless to me. No, she was defending her mate. And when things got out of hand, he reiterated. It was two girls fighting. No, Nolabie I clocked this Adam Chrismond kid in the jaw because apparently he said something about her mate. I'd like to think the girls here know how to hold their own. Matteo said with a bit of a chuckle which actually managed to impress me. A lot of packs chose to not teach girls how to fight. I find it absolutely ridiculous. But oftentimes the women are seen as needing protected rather than an important asset to an attack strategy. The fact that Matteo understood that women are strong enough to fight beside men actually managed to make me feel proud of him being an alpha for once. I didn't really think of what I was doing. I leaned in slowly and kissed him. The kiss wasn't even long enough for him to really do anything. I called away before either of us had the opportunity to deepen it. What was that for? Staring into my icy blue eyes with his dark ones. His brows were drawn together, with his head tilted to the side slightly. For saying something that didn't piss me off for once. I commented with a bit of a smile. This in turn caused a small smile to form on Matteo's face. God, how I love that smile. I rested my head on Matteo's shoulder as his hand ran up and down my back. Neither of us said anything. We just enjoyed each other's company. It felt like it was the first time we actually were acting like mates and accepting it. I'm sorry, I mumbled. If it weren't for the obvious confusion in his voice, I'd think he were just asking to make me point out all of the shitty things about myself. Being me, always arguing. Yet, don't apologize for being you, Kai. I love the way your mind works. It's intriguing. Matteo complimented, making me smile. I wrapped my arms around his toned torso, feeling every ridge from his well-defined ABS as I did so. I was never much of a hugger, but it just felt right. I kind of enjoy the arguing too. You're hot as hell when you're pissed off. I'm always hot as hell. I countered, making him chuckle. Can't really argue with that. His arms wound around me and smooshed me against him. I sighed happily, loving every minute of it as I stuck my face in the crook of his neck. The only thing that could make this moment better was if we were without clothes. Let's go to bed, I mumbled as Matteo squeezed me. It's 10:30, he stated bluntly. Yeah, and if you're tired, you can go to bed. Kaie, you don't have to stay here. He advised making me pull my head out of the crook of his necks, that I could look at him. Matteo, you're obviously tired. You never get to bed until like 12. And then you probably leave at like 8 to come work on whatever stupid stuff you do all day. Let's go, I demanded, hopping off of his lap and pulling on his hand. Eat. Matteo chuckled sharply. I paused in my tracks and furrowed my brows at him. You aren't waking up at 8. He gave me a look that told me that he hadn't woken up at 8 in the morning for a long time. 7. The same look. 6 and the look again. Oh, for the love of all things holy. I have to get up early enough to beat the masses. The pack starts moving around at 530-ish, he explained. This all seemed to make sense. But he was speaking absolute gibberish to me. They don't need your constant supervision. I get that you take your whole alpha thing and may doodle why seriously. But you need to let go a little. I advised before tugging on his hand again. Now, come on. Let's go cuddle. Koya, he drug out. But I could tell by the look in his eyes just how enticing my offer was to him. Don't fight it. I'm actually cooperating. So come on. Let's go. What could be more important than me? You can't spoon a pen and squeeze its ass and enjoy it. Can you? I reasoned, making him burst out laughing. My heart fluttered as pearly whites were on full display for me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's go, he finally agreed as he stood up from his chair. His large hand enveloped mine, which was comparably smaller than his. And I don't allow you to wake up before me, so I'd suggest you sleep in or stay in bed until like lunch, I said as we walked out of his office hand in hand. He pulled the door shut and locked it behind us. What about breakfast? Swallow your spit. Chapter 12, Neck Jab. My nights as well as mornings have definitely been at the acme of excitement lately versus what they had been the past 5-ish years. Between the intense make-out sessions before bed and the extremely bizarre positions that I wake up to find Matteo and Diane, I would say that the two of us were advancing in our relationship with one another. We can actually hold a conversation, now. Then again, we both usually have our shirts off when we do. We don't really see each other throughout the day. Matteo's been pretty busy preparing for the Dumb Leaders Conference, and he still hasn't gotten over being in the same room as me while eating, so we don't actually have meals together. He's murdered people with his own hands, being perfectly okay with hearing their screams and pleas. Matteo, but he can't stand the sound of me eating soup. Yeah. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I've attempted to make friends, but that resulted in Jack putting me in a timeout. Apparently, it's not very civil to threaten a 12-year-old's life just because he thinks that Captain America is cooler than Iron Man. Could have fooled me. That basically sums up how well the whole Rogue Gone Pack Wolf situation has been going for me. Quite frankly, I'm about ready to just give up. I don't enjoy being in the pack house. First of all, I feel like I always have someone who jack up my ass 24/7, making sure everything I do coordinates with pack law. 9 times out of 10, what I do is about 3 miles away from pack law boundaries. But Jack lets it slide with just a warning. A timeout does but continue doing it. I'd never met anyone more serious about a timeout in my life. If it takes Jack 2 hours just to make your art sit in the corner for 5 consecutive minutes, then he'll waste 2 hours of his life doing so. I also just can't handle the permanence of living in one place. It stresses me out a bit. Not to mention, there are other people who stare at me like I have 2 heads all the time living under the same roof as myself. And don't even get me started on Daniela. We are slowly working through our issues. Right now, I'm trying to accept the fact that she breathes. It is safe to say that the only reason I haven't hit the road yet is because I do not want to leave Matteo. I refuse. Sure, we definitely aren't in love. Hell, sometimes we don't really even like each other. But things are getting better. I also have a small amount of hope that if I'm good, then Moon Goddess will forgive me for every sin I've ever done, and somehow change Matteo's mind where he decides to leave pack life and become a rogue with me. I gulk and dream. Wait. I think you're getting worse. Daniela commented as Jack dodged my punch. I was getting progressively angrier by the second with both of them. I decided that I wanted to explore Sierra's training fields and mingle this morning. Somehow, this led to Jack and I sparring while Donnie stood off to the side and criticized everything I did. I think you should go die, I grumbled, throwing another punt at Jack just for him to dodge it. Once again, making me groan. I really just wanted to throat jab him. Your insults are getting weak, she jabbed. I was going to launch another fist at Jack's blonde head, but turned toward Daniela instead. My shoulders went slack as my face went blank of all emotion. Will you please just punch me in the face? I asked, causing a smile and a confused expression to cover Donnie's face. Well, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But why? So that I can do it back, and not get in trouble for it, because you're the one who started it. I explained simply. Daniela rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering something about the incompetence of rogue wolves now. A daze. Do you two ever stop? Jack asked, returning my attention back to him. I'll stop when she can no longer speak and or make any form of facial expression. You're incredible, he exasperated. Sarcasm dripped off of his lips as he spoke. Yeah, I know. I fired back as I tried landing a kick to his side where he wasn't paying attention. That just resulted in him catching my foot and me laying face first on the ground. For years in a cell really does some damage to your strength and reflexes. I feel pathetic, I muttered with my face squished against the dirt of the training field. You aren't pathetic, Jack said as he held out his hand for me to take. I begrudgingly took his hand and allowed him to pull me up. You're just kind of weak. Kid, he laughed. Okay, that's it. Enuacha. I snapped as I threw a right hook knowing he would dodge it. I then brought my left hand up and shanked him right in the throat. The sound of gagging was immediately heard. It was music to my ears at this point. Jack's hands flew up to his throat as he stumbled backward a bit. He continued coughing and hacking all while his emerald eyes watered. I laughed wildly at his choking form. Yeah, call me weak again. What do you call that? He asked in between coughs once he began to calm down from my brutal hand shank to the neck. A neck jab. What did you do that for? I was losing. I responded before walking over and giving him a pat on the back. I think I won. I'm done. Knock it off. Someone shouted, catching both Jack and I's attentions. My eyes caught sight of a girl who looked a bit younger than me trying to rip her arm away from a boy who looked about Jack's age. He might have even been a bit younger, like around my age. Either way, he was really pissing off the girl who was trying her hardest to rip her arm out of his grasp. I watched as he said something back to her that I couldn't quite catch since they were a bit of a ways up the field just for her to shout back at him. For the last time, I said I'm done. She grunted as she swung her left arm around, successfully connecting her small fist to the boy's jaw. It wasn't a hard enough hit to knock him out, but he did stumble back a bit. I figured after being clocked by a girl half his size, he would have just walked away. But no, wolves are extremely prideful creatures, so it really shouldn't have surprised me that he attacked her right back. Shit. Jack cursed as the two of us watched the boy literally throw the girl like a rag doll across the training field. Everyone in the field had stopped what they were doing to watch the scene unfold. Jack, go get Mutt here, I ordered as we watched the boy stalk over to the girl who was pushing herself off of the ground to get into an attack position. He nodded, but froze for a second as his eyes scanned over my face. What are you going to do? He questioned, narrowing his eyes at me. I will never understand how he always seems so on top of other people's mannerisms. It's baffling to say the least. Just go. With that, he was off to get my god of a mate. I rolled my shoulders back and took in a deep breath as I watched the two on the field go at it. I admit, they were both talented. I was extremely surprised by the skill, but the girl had especially. She was strong, but her strength didn't hold out as long as the boy who seemed to be on a mission to murder her. He landed a solid punch to her chest, knocking her straight back to where she smacked her head on the ground. Immediately, She let out a strangled cry and her hands flew up to cradle her head. Any normal person would have known there was no chance of her getting back up. But the dude just wouldn't stop. He went as far as picking her back up and throwing her again, even though she said she gave up. I may be ruthless, but I know the difference between getting out some anger with someone and losing complete control. I learned to control myself since my dad made sure that any problems that my brother and I had were solved with our fists. But obviously the people here weren't exposed to that as much. I jogged my way over to the guy who was just inches away from picking up the girl. Again, the closer I got to her, the more I realized how small she was and how giant this dude was. He was like a freaking roid monkey. Oh, dear Lord, please give me the strength and reflexes that I had previously owned. Me, being the genius I am, just decided to tap on his shoulder in order to get his attention. He turned around swiftly to see who had the nerve to interrupt him. But as soon as he had the chance to see my face, I already had him on the ground. Oh shit. I cussed as I shook out my hand from the impact of the punch to the dude's face. I think I broke a finger. What the hell? The roid monkey asked as he sat up and rubbed the straw where my fist had met. Don't be such a prick. She said to knock it off and leave her alone. I'd suggest you listen. I snapped at him as he pushed himself up from the ground and got right into my face. This boy is going to die today. I've taken down more rogues than you can count. I can easily add you to that list. 2, he chided. I pursed my lips. The dude has balls. If you think it's impressive to throw around girls half your size, then be my guest. Roid, monkey, I taunted, taking a step back and spreading my arms open as if inviting him to tackle me in that very moment. A growl sounded from deep within his chest, and he did exactly what I thought he would. He launched himself directly at my torso. Had it not been the fact that I had a pretty light step, I probably would have been too slow to dodge it. Thankfully, the Lord manages to make miracles happen. You're so predictable. Not having a damn clue was about to do next. That just made him even angrier. His dark grey eyes narrowed on me as he snarled fiercely. Okay, one of us is going to die today. My light step didn't come in handy when his left foot made heavy contact with my chest, sending my flying to the ground. I hit the ground in a heap with a thud. Didn't predict that one, did you? Roid, monkey asked, making me growl. I pushed myself up from the ground against my body's protest. My left arm took most of the hit when I landed on the field. I was surprised it wasn't broken. It hurt like hell. Just trying to give you a few free shots, so you aren't completely embarrassed when this is all over. I chided with a sickeningly sweet smirk. Want to take another? I asked as I tapped the side of my face. I didn't actually expect him to punch me, but damn did I get whacked. My head snapped to the side with a sickening crack from my jaw. I could taste the bitter, ironed taste of blood in my mouth. I slowly cracked my jaw back into place and wiped the blood from my mouth with the back of my hand. You hit like a bitch, I spat with an eerie calmness. By the look on his face, I think he was expecting me to either go flying or be laying on the ground unconscious. Not today. His moment of shock gave me the opportunity to land a sworded punch to the center of his face. I felt extremely proud of myself when I had heard the sickening crack of his nose. Seconds later, a stream of blood from his now broken nose followed. I quickly took his moment of weakness and basically just karate-chopped his throat. I hadn't expected Roid, monkey, to collapse onto the ground. I must have seriously underestimated the amount of force I used in that neck jab. Kaye. Stop. I didn't give him the opportunity to get up and try to attack me again, as he was already choking from the shank to his throat. I got onto him, straddling his waist, and got way too close to his face for comfort. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You give? I asked, smiling widely just to creep the shit out of him. I was pulled away from my current situation when two strong arms wrapped themselves around my torso, sending a warm feeling throughout my entire body and held me against a very toned chest. Normally, I wouldn't complain, but I was on a mission. Put me down. I hollered as I kicked around in Mateo's grasp like a 5-year-old. This just caused his grasp on me to get tighter. You're going to suffocate me. Calm down, Matteo ordered as I continued fighting uselessly against his grasp. Damn, my man is strong. Kaye, calm the hell down, he commanded. I gritted my teeth into in a deep breath as I watched Jack and some girl help Uproid. Monkey. Fine, I sighed, allowing my body to go slack in Matteo's arms. At least let me apologize. You want to apologize? I just smashed his face. Matteo, I deadpanned. Hesitantly, Matteo released me. I mumbled a quick thank you to him as I walked up to Royd Monkey. He had a smug look on his face, obviously waiting for his apology. The apology never came. The only thing Royd Monkey received was yet another fist to the face. Kaye, Jack shouted, pushing me backward into the arms of my mate. Matteo tried wrapping me up again, but I ripped myself away from him before he could get a good hold on me. Don't touch me, I snapped as I made space between myself and Matteo. Guys? Can't you just follow a simple rule? We've been over this, Matteo shouted, making the pack members around us to flinch at his tone. I clenched my jaw out of anger as my now bloody hands from Royd Monkey's nose curled into fist. I don't follow your stupid rules. I'm not like you. I never was. You could at least try to be decent, Matteo suggested, making my heart drop. Well, that one hurt. You don't think I am? Wow, thanks. Newsflash. I never wanted to be a part of a stupid freaking pack anyway. I fired back, feeling like every word was fire coming off of my tongue. If you want to be a rogue so f***ing bad, then just leave. I guess I shouldn't have been so taken back by what he said. I just never imagined him saying that. Just leave. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave him. And I never want him to leave me. I suppose the feeling just wasn't mutual. My face fell and my hands hung lazily at my sides. I wiped all emotion from my face as I spoke. I didn't want Matteo to know how much what he said had just killed me inside.